Welcome to the Young, Dumb, and in Love podcast, where we talk about all things marriage.
Our goal is to help equip you to have a marriage that is better than you have ever imagined by sharing real-life experiences, getting into the nitty-gritty, and sharing practical ways you can start today. Let's dive in. All right. Oh my goodness. Welcome back. We are so glad. Honestly, I'm so grateful and still cannot believe that so many people listen to us talk.
Honestly, because when I listen to myself, I'm like,
no,
ugh.
That's not true. But I love, are you telling me to scoot forward?
No, I was.
I love that there's so many people who come hang out with us. We value each and every one of you. And our dog is freaking out. Come here.
It's because you got whipped cream.
Hi. This is Nala Boo.
But yes, we do value every single one of you who listen and are part of our podcast.
Yeah.
And we just can't wait to continue to do what we do and share what we share and hope that it makes a difference in your life as much as it does for us.
So sorry.
And young, dumb, and in love. And so, and a lot of people have asked, why do you guys call yourselves young and in love? Well, we were young. We were kind of dumb. We fell in love.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But don't you think to be 18 and 20 and get married, you kind of had to be
young, dumb, and in love.
A little dumb? Because if we knew then what we know now, we might tell ourselves
you should probably grow up just a little bit.
You should do a few things. But I'm always so grateful.
I would also tell myself to buy Bitcoin back then too. So
yeah, and invest more and make better financial decisions and all the things. But anyway.
Yes.
Last week we talked about the holidays a little bit and just kind of navigating more. We talked about navigating with family.
Tough conversations.
And maybe awkwardness or unsolicited advice, all of that stuff. Because that is bound to happen during the holidays. Literally every holiday movie. I'm just realizing that it might look kind of funny because
it's hilarious.
It's probably going to get on my face.
There's so much whipped cream on this coffee right now. Yeah, it's on your lips for sure.
I didn't think that
you
through.
Really put on that whipped cream, which I'm not mad about. Not mad about it at all.
It's iced coffee though.
Yes.
Because we do live in Arizona. Anyway, so we talked about that, and conversations are hard with family.
Yeah, they are.
Right? I mean, they can be. They're not always, but one thing we didn't really talk about last week that I thought about after was how they are such a great opportunity to love on your family that maybe you don't see all the time. You know what I mean? And be able to, really be sensitive to what's going on in their life and reconnect and all of those things, which I think are a great opportunity as well.
Yeah. So
that I didn't really, talk about because we were just kind of laughing about everything else. But anyway.
Yeah. So true. And then this week, we started something new with one of our daughters.
Yes.
And it's so funny because our kids are so different, and so our oldest, when we first had her, there was a lot of things that we didn't do because maybe we overthought it or we didn't know what we were doing.
I think we overthought it a little bit and thought that doing anything mainstream, I think we almost felt bad about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know because we didn't really do any Santa ever.
I mean, here's the reason though. The reason is because we've always vowed that if our kids ask her a question.
Also, if your kids are in the room right now, you might want to turn it off. We don't want to ruin anything.
Yeah, for sure. But if your kids are in the room, or if our kids come to us and they ask us a question, we've always said we're never going to lie to them. Yeah. And if they ask a legit hey, is this for real?
Yeah.
She came to us and didn't even ask the question. She goes, so I know that. I
mean, she was pretty young when she did that, but I think we also, because we didn't really embrace it either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas with our younger one, I think because we've changed and we're different now, we're a little bit more into encouraging all of the Christmas stuff and realizing that it doesn't necessarily have to be just this or just like this. You know what I mean? So we started doing Elf on the Shelf.
Oh, so fun though. Honestly, I was looking forward to it more than anybody because
I feel like she's already a little sus.
Oh, she's so sus.
Because she's where's the box? Why isn't this in a box? The one that's on the TV came in the box.
It showed up on in a box.
The movie.
Yeah.
So I'm so then I thought, okay, well, was I supposed to leave it in the box? So I still had the box. So I was oh, it looks like she left the box here on the floor and she just broke out of it. And I'm okay, now am I lying?
No, you're having fun with her.
I'm having fun. So we have an elf.
Using imagination.
But she has had a lot of questions and it's only day one.
Gosh.
So I don't really know if this will be this might be a one and done.
Yeah.
She might have figured it out by the end.
For sure. She's too smart. But she believes it and she's excited, but that's
we want to encourage that. So many questions. Like
all morning.
All the questions. How did she get in here? How did we not hear her? Like, where's the box? Do all of them come in the box? Like, how does she go back to the North Pole every day? I'm like, I don't know.
I'm just trying to have fun with you.
Just supposed to be fun. Anyway, also we were talking about this. When did you realize, like when we had kids, I realized, oh shoot, we're in charge of the magic.
Yes.
Right? Because like growing up, when you I remember super distinctly driving home one night, Christmas Eve, and I saw something bright in the sky. And I remember thinking, that is Santa. And he is on the way to my house. I mean, I remember this. We were driving on the freeway. I can't even remember where we were at on the freeway.
Yeah.
Back in Washington, a freezing cold Christmas Eve night. We were probably going to eat at Denny's because that's what we always did.
Yes,
and I remember thinking, we have to get home because that is Santa Claus. And then now I'm like, now we're responsible as parents to like help create the magic, you know,
real.
and we obviously we teach our kids all about like the reason for Christmas. Like for sure. Jesus is the reason.
Just the other night, Christmas tree, she puts a little nativity.
Oh my gosh, that she made at church.
She put it on the tree.
Yeah.
And I didn't even say anything. She just points to it. She goes, "Hey Dad, that's so that we don't remember what Christmas is all about. We don't forget what Christmas is all about.
Lay down.
Jesus." And I was like, "Oh, lay down. You were literally the best child ever. It's awesome."
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I mean, we definitely, we want our kids to always. We live our life like that, so it's not even a question. But we're responsible for the magic.
Yeah,
and that can be like a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure for sure. Well, even like last year, she didn't want to go to bed, and we were like, "Hey, let's see where Santa is." So we got on the Santa tracker. And she went on there, and we looked at it,
immediately.
And she looks at it. Her eyes got big, and she goes. She basically was like, "Oh crap, I need to go to bed." And she goes, "I need to go to sleep." And she runs upstairs, jumps in bed, and cute. I'm not kidding. She's asleep in 30 seconds.
Yeah, seriously.
It was wild.
Where's that Santa tracker every day?
Yeah, let's put that Santa tracker every day.
So funny. Anyway, so just as parents, creating the magic. But obviously the holidays I think the holidays just put a spotlight on anything in your life that's already stressful.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so true. Because it's an added thing. And so we were just kind of talking about like, what are some practical ways that we can just have a conversation around making the holidays as smooth as they possibly can be. Obviously, always things are going to come up, and making them magical and unforgettable. And so just jotting down a few things. But first thing, and we say this, I don't even know if you've seen it, but you know what I'm going to say. Communication. And we talk about it all the time because it is so foundational to everything.
Yeah.
Everything starts with communication. Everything needs to be communicated, starts with communication. And that goes for the holidays as well. Yeah. Because if you're just like, oh yeah, it's going to be fine. And then all of a sudden one of you is thinking the other one did something and the other one is thinking the other one did that, or you're not coming together. It's like, arguments are bound to happen, frustrations, so just communicating all of the things around the holidays is so important.
Yeah. The number one leading problems that people face is miscommunication. Not communicating their feelings, not communicating what's going on, not communicating. Those are like the number one things that makes families fall apart is communication.
Lack of, or like not meaningful communication, or like, good communication.
Yep. Or any at all.
Right. Because it's like you can talk a lot, but really be not communicating well. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because just talking isn't really going to do it. Yeah. But communication always, when we talk about it, I'm sure people are like, oh, communication again. But yep, again and again and again. And this is why, because every time you and I sit down to write content, because we always believe in like there's a root issue to everything, or a root thing that if you really boiled down all the way down, you'd find like that. Yeah. And so often we're like, man, if it was just a matter of communication, like we could have avoided this argument. We could have handled this better had we communicated.
So true.
And then the other thing I jotted down was establishing expectations. I'm having a hard time speaking today.
Establish? Yes.
It's because I never wear lipstick, maybe?
Yeah. Establish expectations.
It's the whipped cream on the coffee. Establish expectations. And I think this is, you have to be able to, you have to communicate them. But this, I think, is a huge thing too. Yeah. Right? Like,
well, it's huge for both parties in your marriage, and everyone. You have to establish expectations as a man, as a woman, as a parent, for your kids, like, and even have your kids like, hey, what's something that you expect? Like, what are the things that you have those conversations with them?
Even like, what would you like to see?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Help them understand.
What would we like to do this Christmas? How would we like this to feel? How would we like it to go? And kind of make those expectations, Yeah.
And how do you do that? You communicate.
I know. And that's why I'm always like, number one, communication, but establishing expectations. Cause I think it's hard. Like you're thinking like we want our spouses to be mind readers. We just do. And ladies, let me tell you, I have been married for 17 and a half years. Sometimes he can read my mind, but most of the time he cannot.
Yeah, I can always read her mind.
You can read my faces.
Oh,
or
easy.
You can tell sometimes what I'm thinking, but it's because over the years I have set expectations.
Yes.
That's how you know.
Yeah.
Because I have said, I need you to do this. When you see that sitting there right in front of you and you have to walk around it, no, I put it there so that you will pick it up. So it's like establishing expectations.
True.
So how do you establish those expectations for the holidays? Like what is going to be the gift giving expectation?
Yeah.
What is going to be the expectation of family? Which family is getting visited? Which family is coming to visit?
Yeah.
All of that. What are the financial, all of the things expectation wise? What do I expect you to buy me?
Yeah.
And not like even in a negative way, but like in a positive, like what if the husband thinks like, oh, you know what? Financially this year we've been really tight with money, so we're probably not going to buy each other anything.
So
and the wife
doesn't even do anything.
And so he doesn't do anything because he's thinking we're on the same page, right? We've been trying to pay off this or do this, and so she's going to understand, and she's thinking, oh, I can't wait to see the really sweet thing he's buying me. And Christmas morning comes and she's sitting there in ecstatic expectation of this beautiful gift, and he's all, I love you so much. And she goes,
the gift is me. I put a bow on myself.
And she cries. She's like, really? Okay. But I'm saying when you've talked about expectations, then that's helpful.
Yeah. And the best way to establish expectations is, number one, like start with each other, start with your marriage, start with your wife and your husband, and just start to have those conversations and say like, okay, let's talk about Christmas, and be very direct. It doesn't need to be like vague or anything like that. Like, hey, Christmas is coming up. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about presents. What are we going to do for our kids? What are the expectations? Yeah. And then, even like for us, even literally just today, I was like, hey, so what do you want for Christmas? And she's like, oh, nothing. And I'm like,
oh, nothing.
Like, literally, that's what she tells me. No, that's not true. That's what she tells me every single year is that I don't want anything. But what I've learned the hard way is that her saying nothing does not mean nothing.
Okay, well, I'm going against my own word then, because I say expectations, but
yes, but it's because you don't want to be a burden on people, and it's not really an expectation.
Conversation.
It's not really an expectation that you have. It's a desire. I would love to be thought nice. Of this way.
It's true.
But I know that now, So today I was like, hey, so what do you want for Christmas? She goes, no, nothing, nothing. You don't need to do. I'm like, okay, listen, I'm going to get you something, and I would rather get you something that you would actually want. And she goes, okay, I actually have a list. I'm like, you have a list? That's great. I love that. I will look at that list and get you something that you love, and And I mean, I'm very guilty of it too. I'm like, I don't have anything, but I totally have a list. Just go on my Amazon account. You'll see all the things that I want. But
Julian, babe, you always have a list.
Yeah, my list is up 24/7.
He always has a list.
Yeah, I have a list of things that I want to get. But hey, just trying to establish expectations of my dreams and goals.
And maybe
of life.
It's not even gift expectations, but it's like, what will Christmas Eve look like?
Yeah.
Will you attend a Christmas Eve service? Will you go out to dinner with your family? Will you go to Denny's and get a Grand Slam? Like, what are the expectations? Because when one of you is like blindsided, like, well, I didn't know we were going to be doing that. That just causes then strife and argument. And instead, like, hey, babe, this is what we're going to do this year. Or, hey, matching pajamas, which is Julian does not like that. Well, guess what? Too bad. So sad. I'm getting you matching pajamas and you're going to wear them. That's the expectation. You married me. You're wearing matching pajamas.
Hey, but the one year that you sent me and Danny out to the store to buy them, we came back and it was golden. It was such a great year.
Then you can go buy the matching pajamas. I don't care who buys them, but we are wearing matching pajamas. Okay. Like, all right. That is the expectation.
Yes, ma'am.
So anyway, expectations, and then just the planning, like just making the plans, which is kind of like the expectations in a way, but the planning.
Yeah, and planning can be interesting because you're both going to have your opinions and thoughts on what you want to do.
Especially when you're newly married.
Yeah, you have no idea, and then you're like, wait, what? But I always do this, and I always do that. And there's going to be this like, oh man, we're going to have to figure out what this is going to look like for us because I have my traditions, you have yours, and now it's time for you to create your traditions together and figure that out. But your planning is so important. Even like just now, we just had Thanksgiving and we had to like really plan this out because we've personally never hosted it before. And so we had to think about where are people going to sit? What food are we going to eat? What music am I going to play? Like everything, right? And we were able to really sit down and plan that out, and it turned out great. It was a great day. I can imagine if we just didn't plan it and we didn't work on it together.
Right. I think in what you just said, together, because I think a lot of times, and this isn't, I think a lot of times naturally, now maybe this isn't in every single family, but the mom or wife carries a lot of the mental load for the holidays. Yeah. And so I think doing it together, I mean, obviously one of you might carry more of the mental load depending on like what the situation is. But I think it's great when you come together and do it and kind of like say like, hey, if you could take care of this part, or hey, what ideas do you have for this? Because I think a lot of times the moms just feel like, if I don't do it, no one's going to do it. But I think if the husbands could kind of like, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but like kind of step up and be like, hey, like, what can I do to contribute to this year? And that was real. like the one year you had to go buy the matching pajamas. It was like the day before Christmas Eve. And me and my mom was just like super busy. We hadn't gotten them. I think we were living in Arizona and had flown up to Washington, and we didn't have matching pajamas. And we were like, this is not okay. Like we have to have matching pajamas. So we sent the boys to do it, and they took care of it. But see, that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes it's like one of you shouldn't be carrying all the mental load of the holidays, So where are you going to go for Christmas? Like, if obviously if both of your families are in the picture, like, are you going to stay home? Are you going to this house? Are you going to that house? All of that. So like real. Who's getting gifts? You know what I mean? Like, who are we buying gifts for? What does that look like this year? Like, there's so much that does go into the holidays.
And here's the thing about like gifts and that whole situation. Although I love giving gifts, there has to be, and this is the next point, there has to be boundaries that you establish, because you're going to have to tell yourself like, okay, we want to get gifts, we want to be a part, but there might be a season where it's going to be really hard for you, and it's going to be stretching, and it's going to be, it might be too much, and you have to establish the boundaries and even just communicate to the people that you love and just be like, hey, this is a little bit of a different year for us, and I just want to let you know that we're going to do our very best. But I'm not going to promise. I can't promise anything at this point because it's a different year, and we're working through. It's been a rough year, and we're trying to figure that out. And so, establishing
just like communication.
Establishing boundaries is a huge part of the holidays, and for your family, for your immediate family, your husband, your wife, your kids, to everyone else, and with each other. It's so important so that you can stay, enjoy your time and establish a time where you can really enjoy each other during the holidays.
Yeah. Well, I think with boundaries too, like sometimes, we lose sight. One, I think we lose sight of what obviously Christmas is all about. And two, like, it can be difficult to do what's best for you, your spouse, and your kids, because you do feel like these obligations to like family. You know what I mean? So having those boundaries of like, okay, like we're going to stay home this year, or we're going to do this, or whatever that looks like, you know, but being confident in having those boundaries and being able to say like, hey, this is how we're going to do it, or hey, this is what we're going to do. And knowing that that's okay. Yeah. You know, and then traditions. I love traditions. I think we talked about this last year too, but like how two different families have completely different traditions, or depending on your upbringing and whether or not, you know, you even like celebrated, how you celebrated, when, like, you know, there's people who open presents on Christmas Eve. Like, what? That is so weird to me. Yeah, but some on Christmas Day.
I can't do it personally. If that's you, hey, more power to you.
More power to you. Or like, for example, I grew up and my parents were divorced. And so like I had two different Christmases, you know, like I had Christmas here and then Christmas there. But establishing new traditions with your spouse and with your family, you know, is such an awesome opportunity that you have. And so just kind of thinking like, what traditions do we want to establish, you know? And we do, I mean, we're not like, I wouldn't say we're very like fancy people or like big ticket people. Like we're not like, oh, we're going to do this big thing. And
for us, it's about the memories. And
and so we will jump in the car and drive different neighborhoods and look at Christmas lights, and our kids love it. And it's, I mean, other than paying for gas, which is expensive these days, but you know, you're just driving around. So that's like, how can you create magical moments that are traditions and become something your kids remember? Because it doesn't have to be the extravagant things all of the time, you know? But
but traditions are important because you, like the last episode we said, when you get married, you leave and you cleave and you begin to build your own world with your spouse. And so traditions are great because what it does is it kind of, it's like a foundation for who you are as a couple and as a family. And so when time comes around, you're like, hey, this is our tradition. This is something that we do as a family. And that's special. And the kids look forward to it and you look forward to it. And, you know, especially when it's a good tradition, obviously you're going to try something and you hope that it becomes a tradition and it flops and you're like, yeah, we're never doing that again. That's happened many times in our marriage.
My gosh. Isn't that always the funniest thing though? Like you do something, right? You're like, this is going to be amazing.
And then you do it and you're like, I'm never doing that again.
And you're like, why did we do that? We did when we first moved here, and I won't say where it was because I don't want to, you know, but we went to like this light thing, right? Like we were so excited. And it was like, you drive through these lights and I'm like, oh, it'll be so great.
We're going to do this every year.
It was pretty expensive. So we go and we drive through it, and it was like a whopping 10 minutes, maybe. And we waited for a long time in this line, and we got to the end, and even our kids were unimpressed. And you know, it's bad when like your littlest one, who I think she was had just turned 3, was kind of like, where are the lights? And we're like, well, that was fun. So we went and got ice cream, and then we were like, we're never doing that again. But even that is a fun like memory when you look back. So it's like, sometimes I think you have to take the pressure off of yourself as like, even though yes, as parents, we want to create magic for our kids and we want it to be fun, you have to kind of take the pressure off and know that it actually sometimes ends up being the things you don't plan that leave the most, like the biggest imprint and lasting memory for your kids, you know? And it's like the simple things. And so it's like in this Christmas season, as especially, you know, I know like I'm the mom, so there's a lot of mental load of like who's getting what and buying presents for all the kids in your family, you know, making sure everyone feels seen and loved. And okay, not to mention all the Christmas programs and the showcases and the
everything
Christmas parties and all the things you have to go to. But it's like, don't miss the simple magical moments with your family that are just so precious. You know, the opportunities to share the love of Jesus, the opportunities to encourage your kids and to show them like what it's about. And it's so like, to me, that's the most precious part. You know what I mean? Is just watching them embrace that.
For real.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling all sentimental as a mama. But and the last thing I think I wrote on there for this particular
budget and
budget. Okay, let's be practical. Yes, I just talked about the sweet part of it, but be practical. Like, I think it's hard because there's pressure, right? You're like, I have to buy a present for every single person, and I have to make sure it's this amount of money, and I have to make sure it's even. And maybe that is how you do it. And if that's how you do it and it works, great. But I think a lot of times we put an unnecessary amount of pressure on ourselves. Don't go broke for Christmas. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, of course, it's probably going to be stretching for a lot of people, but how can you sit down? And honestly, this is something you really have to do way earlier than if you haven't done it already. It might be a little bit late to the budget game, but thinking like, okay, what's practical? You know what I mean? Like, what's practical? And then prepping it, you know what I mean? And so that on the day you can enjoy the day.
And on side of prep, the other side that we need to make sure that we work really hard on is just that it's teamwork, you know? So like, let's establish our jobs and what we're going to be doing.
I spelled.
I know what we're going to do. And so like, there's things that Brittany will be much better at, and there's things I'll be better at, and there's things that we'll do really good together
for the holidays.
So yeah, as you're prepping, you know, so for instance, like the elf on the shelf, we both have really good ideas. Who's going to have to execute it most likely? Probably me, because Brittany goes to sleep very early. She goes to sleep at the same time as the girls.
Even this morning,
and,
I prepped the stuff for the elf last night. Like, I wrote the little note and I had it in a drawer, and I was like, gonna do something better than I did. It was fine and it was cute, but this morning Elsie woke up at the same time.
Yeah. So and I was like, I had to distract her.
I'm like, go hang out with Dad. It's fine. Anyway, but yeah, just budget teamwork. Prep, you know, but like you said, the teamwork. And I think, you know, just enjoying the holiday. I mean, I think that's the thing, is it's so, we live in such a hustle, bustle, go, go, go all the time. And it's like, if you can stop and take a step back and enjoy it. And, you know, cause I'm looking at, and I probably feel sentimental, and I know there's probably a lot of parents out there and that are like, my kids are getting older. Like, you know, my youngest is 5 and so it's like, I know, and my oldest is going to be 12 years old. And so it's like the time is going by so fast. And so it's like, how can you just take
So sad.
I know. Hold on, give us a moment. No, I'm just kidding. We need a moment. Should we have one more baby?
No.
No, that's a hard pass for both of us. But you're distracting me now. I'm distracting myself. But just taking those moments, you know what I mean? And also I think it's important, and I didn't write this down, but to show your kids and give them an opportunity to be a light in this season and teaching them what that looks like. Because I know we grew up, and my parents would often like adopt a family that was struggling, you know, and that was going to have a hard time having Christmas. And so we would find a family in the community, and it changed each year. Like when I was younger, I think we found different families. And then as I got older, it would be like, you know, like a giving tree at church, and we would adopt like a whole family from the giving tree or whatever that looks like. And so, you know, or they have like Operation Christmas Child now, then you can like fill a box. And I think it's like, you want to give your kids an opportunity to see like that there are people out there who need to be loved. You know what I mean? Need love. They need help, like to teach them to be generous, to see others, to know. And it also helps them recognize like how blessed they are. You know, and I think that's a great way, like in the holidays, it's like even easier to teach them that, you know?
Yep. So true. Well, we hope that this really helped you today. I mean, at the end of the day, as we're talking about the holidays and Christmas.
Are you wrapping up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Daddy's got to go.
Oh, Daddy's got to go. I'm like, is he cutting me off?
I'm wrapping it up because
He's got a meeting.
I got a meeting. But
real life, people, real life.
I know, seriously. But we are grateful for every single one of you. And we hope that as we're having this conversation, that it truly just makes a difference in your world, and you're able to truly just grab a hold of what the holidays are really about, you know, and don't let it tear you apart, but let it bring you closer together every single day.
And look for the opportunities to love your family.
Yeah.
And those around you.
Yeah. Make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
And allow that to just be what drives you. It's not about the presents. Although the presents are great, and we enjoy them, it's really not at all what it's about, you know? And so how can you be the light to the people around you? And ask yourself that as you, after you listen to this podcast. So make sure you subscribe, you like it, you share it, everything that you can, just to help us grow, and then also just to share it with people who need to hear it. But we're so grateful for you guys. We'll see you next week.